from Brazil. I'm a researcher at the Center for Social Studies in Coimbra, Portugal, and I'm visiting academic here in Manchester this semester. I'm in my first year of my PhD in political ecology, and I'm part of the entitled European Network of Political Ecology. So my research focuses on violent environments and environmental conflicts. John Martinez Alier from Barcelona is my co-supervisor, and I'm kind of following his research over on environmentalism of the poor, or popular environmentalism, and in environmental conflicts. So that's the first distinction for what I'm going to present. First, I'm going to briefly present my research, and then my fieldwork experience and how I'm now doing a PhD, and I have a bit of different way for most of academics. My interest is on conflicts related to extractive research and our environmental conflicts. And when we're talking about the Amazon, we're talking about most of the conflicts, a part of drug independence or some urban conflicts, but we're talking about most of the conflicts that happens in the Amazon, and the Amazon's the most violent part of Brazil. This is very briefly the theory of violent environments that I'm trying to follow and trying to apply in the Amazon. It is suggested by Nancy Peluso and Michael Watts from Berkeley. And I try to understand the forms of violence that appears in the fieldwork of social power and emerges from fieldwork of social powers and social relations of production related to the environmental environmental resources expropriation. This is a bit of a poster of my research. So the question that I made is the violence that happens in the conflict zones in the Amazon is a result, or is itself a part, not a consequence, of the process of environmental, cultural, and social destruction? In the end, I'm questioning why is so many people getting killed in the Amazon from the past 30, 40 years since the colonization process has started after the dictatorship. And there are some sub-questions that I make of how the institutions mediate conflicts there, and how we can explain the decrease in deforestation rates and the persistence of high levels of rural violence, land conflicts, and some different types of violence depends on which commodity we're discussing: mining, logging, or agriculture. Once those two factors has been connected in literature, we usually say that we used to think that high deforestation means high levels of violence. That's true, but the opposite is also true. Like decreasing deforestation, and we still have high rates of violence. And I based my research in some different cases all over the Amazon, and I'll use qualitative and quantitative analysis produced by local NGOs, by different government agencies like the Brazilian NASA, which is the INPE, National Institute of Spatial Research, which tracks deforestation, and also information from police, from state authorities. And this is the murder and death rates. How I started to think about it. Well, I realized reading the CPT, the Pastoral Land Commission annual reports, that shows that since '86, Chico Mendes, that it's well-known environmentalist, was built in '88, 25 years ago. This is the murder rates in the state of Pará, to have an idea. That's the most violent state there. But you can have an idea that those numbers are from 20 to 10. It's basically the same from the past 3 years, but death threats, it's sometimes up, down, and there's some local reason that I'm trying to understand. But one thing that is important to remark is that since 2000 to now, 54 people who received death threats, they were killed. So when people say they receive death threats, we should take that really serious, and I'm gonna show you some terrible examples. But you see that it's like this, no? And in Pará State. But when we look at deforestation rates, especially after Lula arrived in power, we see that it's decreasing a lot. Mostly for maybe international pressure or carbon discussion and agreement from the government that we're going to take care of deforestation, but not of everything else that's happening in the Amazon, especially the social problems. And my research is basically will happen in the art of deforestation. And one of the things that I try to show here is that different frontiers that can happen and at the same time those conflict zones. It's not like in Marabá, which was called like a frontier of colonization in the 70s. It has been deforested, but it's still being one of the most violent places where you have those frontier situations. And so I try to understand what has changed during this long period that we still have murder rates, for example, in the town of Marabá, which is around 165 per 100,000. It's like, I don't know. And I will compare different cases of the Amazon. How did I got here? That's actually the most interesting part of my research. I'll think, well, those are the different conflicts that I kind of visualize there, that in my experience, and I'm still thinking on how I'm gonna put them together to work. And the diversity of people who lives in the Amazon. We have indigenous people, rubber tapper, nut collectors, riverside populations, peasants. It's impossible to put all of them together. Only indigenous people have 238 indigenous people and 108 languages. So it's a really complex. So it's a really complex social situation. I started to work in the Amazon as a journalist. I'm not a journalist in Brazilian sense because I didn't study journalism. I come from law and I did a master in political science in France. But when I was back to Brazil, I was invited to create a magazine of Brazilian Indian ages, Funai. And first I thought, wow, that's so beautiful to visit all the indigenous tribes and their rituals. Well, that was what I was thinking before I started to work there, because what I faced was genocide, it was violence. Every Indian that I met in different parts of the Amazon, they were telling me stories of genocide. So that's the story of one Indian who lives alone, isolated in the forest in Rondônia. The entire population has been killed since the 80s. There are some cases of small populations living in the Amazon, which is produced by genocide. That's the Awak people. I don't know if I can maybe turn a bit. Because there's some. It's like here. So there's a campaign from Survive International about the genocide of the Awak, which is considered like the people in the world with most risk of extinction and genocide. That's in Maranhão State, which is by Marabá in eastern Amazon. Then there is some struggle for land of the Xavante. So that's in 2006, and that was when I arrived in there, like younger than today, and let's talk about the Indians, and it's not like that. How we're gonna be impartial, as well, Paul Marvelous explained here. I'd like to bring everything that he said about ethics and those conflict zones. Like, we have to denounce it. That was the first thing. And journalism was one of the ways that in that time, for me, it was important and it was feasible to go to different places. So after I left Funai, I started to work with different magazines. So Rolling Stones, and that means fear and tension in the West. And then deforestation, dams, the drive-ins of the Amazon. I was writing different articles to have different experience. I was editor of National Geographic Brazil, and when I was editor of that, I denounced that another magazine from the same company wrote a very racist article against Indians, and I denounced it in my Twitter, and I was fired from National Geographic. So that was like working on conflict zones. We are pushing to be in extreme. Yesterday, I was informed that I've been prosecuted for a Brazilian surfer company because I denounced that they were downing money to a mission agency, American mission agency called New Tribes Mission, who has been accused of genocide in Brazil. They try to evangelize Indians. They're getting money from this surfer company. I put that in my Twitter, and they're prosecuting me, so it feels really good to be here in this island, North Atlantic. And well, besides journalism, I try to have experience on field, go to different places, and make connection with local population and the NGOs and social movements there. So I was like, for example, following a film festival in Rondônia. This is really Wild West. So the best way to come here is like in a cinema festival. Nobody cares lots about you, and you can talk to different people there. We can understand what's going on, and then we can think how we're going to work with information. I believe in the journalist way, denouncing if there is some atrocities going on there, or as of what I'm doing now, as a researcher, and try to understand and well help create some political opportunities there. That's how it looks, the Amazon in Rondônia. It looks like a Vietnam War, and that's the progress that they're bringing there, that we try to denounce, and that's the result of dams. And just to finish, that's the couple that when I was doing one of my investigation, I met them, and I was doing an investigation for an NGO, and I recorded it. I denounced it. I made a documentary about it. I'm just coming back from the trial, and I went to follow this trial as a researcher, but I could not just stay as a researcher. And that's the nature, they were not collectors. So I denounced it, and the result of the trial, as I have denounced the murder, and I have denounced the killing. And I'm working now there as a researcher. That means I want to understand what have produced this atrocity. So I came from journalism to research. And I believe in academic we can understand some different situation from journalists, but I do respect different forms of work, and I also doing documentaries, and which offers new possibilities of diffusing what is going on there. And that's a film I did about the couple. It's online. And well, is there contradiction between being journalist, academic, and filmmaker? I don't know, I'm facing that now. In this trial, I presented myself as a journalist, or sometimes as a researcher. Sometimes it cannot be very well received, the information that we are international researcher in the Amazon, where they have this theory of, a conspiracy theory of the internationalization of the Amazon. But I must be fair to the people we are talking about, and of course, inform consent. So they know for what they are giving the interview. Sometimes no. But we're gonna have to measure there, especially to respect the people who are suffering. For example, this couple that they were assassinated a couple months after I interviewed them, and they asked me to denounce that they were receiving death threats, and I did it. When they asked to not do it, we respect, of course, but in this case, that was what brought international attention to their case, and you see that they were really beautiful. Well, if you have the courage to fight, then fight. It's better to die fighting than not fighting, you know.